Today we're going to talk about fear and cowardice. William Shakespeare once said, "A coward dies 1,000 deaths. A hero dies but once." This is from his play Julius Caesar. It's a metaphor as to how one feels inside when they shrink away from adversity and fail to stand up to challenge. A little bit of our soul is lost when we allow others to kick sand in our face. We've all had that friend that's had somebody get in their face and punk them out. We watch him tuck his tail between his legs and slink away for fear that things may escalate further. He's afraid that he may look foolish in public if the situation goes to the next level. He tries to make himself feel better after the fact by issuing platitudes like, "He wasn't worth it," or "I'm not going to get in trouble over this BS," or my favorite, "I would have done something if it wasn't for XYZ. All the excuses and rationalizations won't change the reality or how you feel about what happened. You aren't fooling anyone, especially not yourself. If one were to genuinely walk away as the bigger person and had the confidence in that decision, they wouldn't need to talk about it for 3 months. Look, being able to handle yourself physically is at the core of every man. This is why young men love comic books, action heroes, and MMA. Think about it. Peter Parker is a mild-mannered, easily overlooked man by day, and the superhero Spider-Man at night. Clark Kent, aka Superman, is the same basic formula. So why do these themes resonate with so many young people? Well, because most of us find ourselves living a life similar to a Peter Parker or a Clark Kent. We take people's BS, wishing that we could have done something, wishing we would have said something. So instead, we fantasize about being a superhero who could right these wrongs and put these jerks in their place. My father used to always tell me to be the bigger person and to walk away from altercations. He was famous for saying, "Turn the other cheek," and "Don't lower yourself to their level when somebody tries to goad you into a fight." But over time, I found that's only part of the equation. Anyone can walk away physically, but a confident person walks away mentally as well. It's very easy to tell the difference between the confident person and the coward. If it's really not worth your time, then tell this person to F off and then go about your business. But don't talk about it nonstop for the rest of the night and bring it up every time you feel insecure about it. All you're doing is confirming that you were, in fact, a coward. I'm sure we've all felt that fear. We've backed down only to learn later that that feeling stays with us. I can remember incidents that happened 35 years ago. When I was growing up, I was always a big kid who was reasonably athletic, and I kept to my own business. But for some reason, I always used to have older kids picking on me verbally and physically. These maladjusted, socially inept losers were probably getting bullied by their peers, so they were looking to take out their frustration on a much younger, smaller kid who wouldn't be able to fight back. There was even a point where I was afraid to walk to school because the bullying was that bad. I was too prideful to tell anyone. I tried to handle things the best I could. Obviously, with a non-confrontational father who taught me to turn the other cheek, I was woefully ill-prepared for such dust-ups. I was like a declawed cat being sent out into the wild to fend for myself. Initially, I would try to follow my father's advice, so I'd back down and let them get the better of me, which actually encouraged further bullying since I offered no opposition. I learned that turning the other cheek just gave people another side of your face to slap. To make matters worse, taking someone's crap will draw bullying from other kids who witness that you're not standing up for yourself. Now your problems are compounding. But I never made excuses for myself. I always knew in my heart that I was walking away because I was really afraid of conflict. Well, like most things, it got down to the point where I just couldn't take it anymore. I had enough. I was sick and tired of being picked on. I was sick and tired of feeling powerless and afraid. I was exhausted worrying about running into one of these older kids walking to and from school. So I decided that the next time one of these kids decided to give me a hard time, I was going to stand up for myself and fight back if it came down to it. I figured out the hard way that sometimes in life you have to speak to others in a language that they understand. To this day, I always start out respectful with people in my tone. I try to keep things civil. But sometimes you have to haul people up short and let them know that you aren't to be trifled with. Well, it didn't take long for the opportunity to arise, and I stood up to this much older, bigger kid, who then took it to the next level and proceeded to kick my ass. I did the best I could, but I did get the short end of the stick. But a funny thing came out of that. The bullying, for the most part, stopped. Why? Because I wasn't such an easy target anymore. Instead of being mocked for losing the fight, which was my worst fear, the other kids actually respected the fact that I stood up for myself, especially considering the odds were stacked heavily against me. I never tattled on anyone. I never involved other people in my problems. I learned to handle things on my own. It would have been nice to have some support or some basic tools rather than have to learn all of this on my own. But the only regret I had was not learning these lessons earlier. Look, all the anti-bullying campaigns in the world are not going to stop kids from picking on each other. You're going to have to learn to face your fears and stand up for yourself verbally and physically if need be. I'm not suggesting to anyone to start handing out jailhouse beatdowns, but don't be afraid to hold your ground and defend yourself. I'm also not suggesting that you have a zero tolerance rule. We all have to deal with some degree of BS in our life, for whatever reason. Learn to pick your battles and know when it makes sense to defend your line in the sand. That said, don't let people push you around. Don't allow yourself to be an easy target, because trust me, bullies come in all shapes and sizes and ages. First, it's that kid on the playground or an older sibling. Next, it's a boss or a coworker. It never ends. Kids who are bullies tend to grow up to be adult bullies, so you better get comfortable in dealing with them. As the old saying goes, once you start running from your problems, you never stop. You will always be looking over your shoulder. Face your fears. More often than not, you'll find it wasn't as bad as you thought. Join an MMA gym and get some skills if that helps you deal with confidence. They have programs geared for all ages and skill levels. Lift some weights and build yourself up so you're not such an easy target. Join a combat sport at school like wrestling, which will not only develop skill and conditioning, but also get you comfortable with a physical altercation. My takeaway here is this. A few bruises and a swollen lip will heal in a couple of weeks. That black eye will go away, but a bruised ego, that can last a lifetime. If you did your best, there's nothing more that you could have done. There's nothing to be ashamed of. What more can you ask of someone? At the very least, you can hold your head high that you stood up for yourself, and that will give you the confidence to keep standing up for yourself as you go through life.